Honestly, I had tried to do an Instagram live, I mean not Instagram live, YouTube live of me reviewing this book, but my Wi-Fi is so slow, like the stuff just looked bad. So I'm gonna just treat this like a live and just hopefully I don't mess up so I don't have to edit it. So basically, Nia comes out with this book called Bottom of the Pyramid, and as a former dance mom super fan myself, I definitely had to read it. So we're gonna go cover like chapters 1 through 3 today, and I took some notes. So starting with the intro, it's not much to the intro. She's really just kind of just detailing. I liked what she said about why she didn't go to the reunion, basically saying like production had 7 seasons to change the narrative of her and they didn't. So she said when she was ready to tell her story, she was gonna do it on her own time. That way nothing could be misconstrued. She also mentioned she was already writing this book when she was contacted about going to the reunion. She said, like, she mentioned how she could have used the reunion in efforts to like kind of promote her book, but she was like, nah, she was good. Anyway, so one more thing she said that kind of stuck out to me from the intro. So obviously it's called Bottom of the Pyramid. She was always on the bottom of the pyramid. This is basically her like kind of taking that back and turning it into something positive. And she speaks about like, oh, you see how cheerleaders, when they form a pyramid, like who's at the bottom, like the strongest are always at the bottom to hold up the people at the top. And I like that. I like how she's kind of trying to turn it into a more of a positive thing. So as we get to chapter 1, she kind of just opens up about her childhood, talking about what her parents do. You know, Holly was a but principal at a school, and her dad worked for a nonprofit. Just talking about how her parents were always super busy, so it really just took a village to kind of raise them in a sense. So the reason she goes to AODC was for conveniency, because it was in her neighborhood, and it wasn't called AODC at first. It's called like Rain something. I had forgot, but she gives a description of Abby, and she was like, okay, she was like, you come in, she's sitting at the desk, like she has this huge presence, she's big, she's wearing black, is this, that, third. She said she's like a real life Mrs. Trunchbull. And I was like, I started laughing when I heard that part, but I'm like, who is that? Because it rang a bell. And so I had to go look it up, and it was from the movie Matilda. And when I saw her and it came back to my memory who she was, I started laughing again. So she also talks about like how the girls was like really I wouldn't say scared, but they didn't really like being around her, because she was always yelling. And if you was late to class, she said how like they would try to sneak past her, because she would say like, oh, if you late, like you might as well not be here. And how like if they're in the room talking and they hear she's coming, then everybody like scatters like roaches. And they also talk about her mother. She talks about her mother for a brief period of time, and said how her mother was like complete opposite. She was very nice, especially when she taught. She was never like being really harsh on the girls, which I find interesting, because why did Abby turn out the way she did? And her mother's like, you know, portrayed as like very sweet. So then that was pretty much it for chapter 1. You know, nothing really to take from there, just really her backstory. So chapter 2 is when she really starts getting into like talking about dance. She talks about how like she was really determined, because she wanted to be a soloist. She liked being on the stage. Like she really had that presence. She said like since she wanted that solo, she went from going to dance probably like 2 days a week, and she finally went to the competition, and then it went to like 5 days a week classes. Her mom would take notes of her dances, would write down like the moves she had for her dances and all that, and because they didn't have the devices to record, something like that. So then like y'all remember how Abby had went to jail for fraud? Now Nia doesn't mention this so far. I don't know if she's gonna mention it, but she doesn't mention it, but it makes me realize like, wow, she really was money hungry. So she talks about how Abby would charge students double for discounted items that they had. And so she said like she would get discounted outfit pieces from New York and would like inflate the price to them, which I find like it's like really weird, because why are you doing this to your, you know, your reoccurring customers? Like these are basically family at this point. So then they would do like once a year they would do like this huge dance photo shoot. Okay, I'm sorry y'all. I think I was talking about the dance. Oh, so yeah, once a year they do this dance photo shoot. It's a big thing. Everybody would dress up. So the family was required to buy these dance books, and she said that Abby was making it seem like, oh, it's gonna be sent off to like all these people so they can get recognized, and she was selling them at a super inflated price. And so that just made me think like, yeah, she really was money hungry, and greed will always be her biggest downfall, because look at her now. But anyways, she says something in here about like for Christmas, Abby would get all the girls matching bra and panty set, and she didn't make a big thing out of it. Like it was weird, but it was something that was weird to me, because I'm like, because she tells the girls like, oh, you know, every girl needs a matching bra and panty set, but I was like, these are little girls, like, what do they need that for? Like, but Nia had portrayed it as if she was you know, at the time she was really excited for it. She didn't really say anything negative towards it. So I don't know if that was open for insinuation or anything, or maybe she's going to talk about it later in the book. Who knows? Because what she does is I see she's tending to like kind of jump around a bit at times. And the questions you'll have probably at the beginning of the chapter, she'll kind of revisit it. So then we move on to like, she kind of talks about her school life, and she says she doesn't have many friends. And this is where I kind of get emotional at, because she says she doesn't have many friends, and dance is where she felt like she fit in. And as we all know, that is complete opposite because of the way they treated her. So that was really sad to me. So then we move on to her first solo. She talks about her first solo was called Natty of the Jungle. And you know, on the show, Abby used to always give her solos or parts that was basically very African type things, or very like stereotypical black, you know, songs and costumes and stuff. So Natty of the Jungle, she talks about how, I can't recall exactly, it was just like somebody in a like they were stranded in a jungle, and they like with the monkeys and all that, and like throughout the song it's like it's making like ooh ah like throughout the song. So then Holly ends up talking to her husband, saying that had racial undertones, and she didn't really like that. And Nia, I don't know if she was saying like she didn't understand what that meant at the time, or she just didn't feel like that was, you know, that. So she was kind of like racial undertones, like, you know, no, like I like to dance, like it's really fun, I like the costume, this, that, and the third. And was really just vouching because, you know, she said like she wanted a solo, and this was her first solo. So then her parents allowed it. They're like, cool. They let her do what she wanted to do, and she ends up performing it. So she also wanted to be in good graces with Abby. You know, that's why she really wanted to do it. So then we move on to her next solo, which is called Satan's Little Lamb. And so that's when Holly had spoke up immediately. And Nia says like although her family wasn't super religious, they were still Christians at the end of the day, and they didn't want to give off a bad message. So Abby kind of tries to reassure Holly, saying like, oh, it's not satanic, this, that, and the third. But you know, she still ends up doing it regardless of the fact. She said she had like a white, kind of just like a white costume on, I guess, representing the lamb. So I guess, you know, probably wasn't too bad. But I feel like since they had let a lot of this stuff slide in the beginning is why a lot of the stuff continued that we saw on the show as well. Because one thing about like people, and especially when it comes to these like microaggressions and everything, if you do not check them and you show them that you're gonna allow certain stuff, they're gonna continue to play in your face, and they're gonna continue to think that this is okay. So then we go to Nia. Ends up she's in dance class, and her legs start hurting, and she says she has to sit down. She just feels like, okay, maybe she's tired because she is working a lot, I mean, you know, dancing a lot. Oh, before we talk about that, I want to talk about how she mentions in the book that she was highlighted by Abby. I'm saying this for a reason because I'm going to circle back to it. She said she was highlighted in group dances. Like, she was really kind of favored by Abby. So then that's when we move on to she's in pain, and she ends up so much in pain she has to go home. She was like, and that wasn't like, you know, dancers don't go home for anything unless, you know, it's really bad. So she goes to her pediatrician, and from there they tell her like, you need to go to the hospital. So she says she goes to the hospital, and she's getting picked and poked at, and then the doctors look at her and say, hey, we don't know either. We don't know why you're in pain. So I don't remember where she said Holly was, but she says, you know, she flies into the hospital, and the doctor, and this was crazy, like the audacity, the doctor tells Nia's mom, Holly, that Nia was lying and was saying it to seek attention because her mom worked too much. And I just felt like that made me so angry to hear, because not saying like that specific situation happens all the time, but the fact that the doctor really just brushed her off and was saying, oh, like, it's because you work too much. You know, I just felt like that was really weird, and that just happens a lot, and that's why we have to really advocate for ourselves when it comes to these healthcare systems, because they'll really try to play in our face. So, you know, Dr. Holly comes back and says, okay, well, get that in writing and let that and show that the reason as why you're denying care to her. Now, Nia doesn't, like, you know, she doesn't expand on this and talk about if, you know, what happened after that. So, you know, to my assumption, I would believe the doctor did not do that. So later on, she finally ends up realizing that she has R&D, and then that is called reflex neurovascular dystrophy. And she explained it as her brain is sending pain signals when there's not pain. So she talks about how, you know, now she's not able to walk, and she's in and out of the hospital. She's missing a lot of school. She's missing a lot of dance due to this. And so this also hurts my heart, because it's like, listening to these stories is just making me sad, with knowing that what dance moms had brought to her as well. She was already kind of experiencing a lot, and now, you know, we get to this. So she goes to school in her wheelchair. She has a wheelchair, and she says how the kids were making fun of her because she was in that wheelchair, and she was confused because she's like, well, this is helping me. Why is everybody like kind of being mean to me? And that, you know, this made me sad, because, like, you know, kids are really, really cruel. And luckily my mom, she always taught me that people are definitely gonna look different from you, but that doesn't mean, you know, you're above them or they're less than. So I wish that everybody was kind of taught that, because it's, you know, don't get me started, y'all. Oh shoot, somebody just fell. Anyway, so she had to relearn mobility. She goes to an outpatient program, and she had to relearn how to walk, relearn how to swim. She talks about how, like, she can't have certain fibers on her, like certain blankets, like, still to this day. So all of this, you know, she had to basically relearn all the basic skills, and then she finally goes back to dance, and this is where the shift kind of happens. And she says how it was 18 girls when she left on the team, and then it came to 5 girls, and that was due to people either going to other dance companies or just quitting in general. And so she says how she was really behind, like, all the girls had progressed a lot while she was still kind of stuck in the same place that she was left, but probably even a little bit worse, and she had to relearn a lot of stuff. Talks about how they learned how to side aerials, and all the girls were good on their right side, so all the dancers was catered to the right side, where Nia's side was strong side was the left. So it was just a lot of disadvantages she was at while coming back. And then she felt in the shadows. So, like, listening to that, that's when I had circled back. That's when I'm gonna circle back to, like, when I said she was highlighted by Abby. And then as you see, like, on the show, she's really, like, disregarded by Abby. And I feel like it's because of that, you know, disorder that she had or has. And that causes her to, you know, that causes Abby to kind of just push her over. Like, oh, you're not doing anything good for me anymore, so, oh, well. And I just feel like that was really, I feel like that's really nasty. I just feel like Abby's a real nasty person. And it makes me cringe, kind of like watching it back. Because sometimes that was my comfort show. I was young. Sometimes I watch it back, and it's hard for me to continuously watch it, because, like, she's a very evil person. So while she's telling me all of this, while she's not telling me all this, while she's telling this story about, you know, her condition, I get to, like, I'm like, I know I've watched this a couple of times, and maybe I was too young to remember, but I don't really recall her ever having this condition. I was like, I remember one time she was hurt, and I remember it was like something with her legs, but that was it, and everything seemed fine after that. So that's when she talks about, like, the show made it seem small and made it seem as if it was like a came and went type of situation, despite how long, you know, the recovery really was. And I'm like, yes, that was true, because I didn't even know that, like, she was suffering with that. Now, maybe y'all knew that, because I wasn't really on social media at the time, because, like I said, I was really young. I was probably like So the show come out in 2011. I was about 7 years old when the show came out. I probably didn't start watching until about 9. So I really wasn't on social media like that at the time. So her first solo back is called Waka Waka. And this is when she really begins to realize, like, maybe she is making these, she's catering these to my race, because she said at the time Waka Waka was the official song for the FIFA World Cup in Africa, and she said anytime Abby heard Africa, she thought of her. So this is when we get into the part where, like, the show began, like the show is kind of starting up, like the idea is sparking up. They're having like posters like out, like, you know, audition for this, that, and third. So they, you know, Holly and Nia were, well, Holly was kind of skeptical of the opportunity because, you know, it's a small city and it's a small town in Pittsburgh. Who wants to you know, film in Pittsburgh? And so it was also a lot of, you know, scams going on, like, oh, we can get you, you know, showcase, you know, you gotta pay a price. So anyways, they just do it anyway because Nia really wants to be on TV. She talks about herself as like she's very fierce and she loves just being in the public eye. So then Nia talks about how the idea sparked because Abby was complaining about the moms to a man named John Corella, who knew a producer. Now I forgot the producer's name, I didn't write it down, but they end up pitching, you know, the show, and it was picked up by Lifetime almost immediately. So then they have their audition and they start kind of talking about, like, you know, it's nothing really crazy about the audition, just kind of asking basic questions. Nia and Holly are in there, and one thing that they did say kind of stuck out to me, and I feel like once Nia said this, that whoever was interviewing them already knew, like, we're gonna pick her and we know exactly what we're gonna do with her. So they asked Nia, like, what's it like working with Abby? And Nia basically says, like, she feels like she gets typecasted by Abby, you know, with the solos and stuff. And as you can see, that's exactly what we saw within the show. And I feel like they, you know, obviously reality TV, they're gonna be looking for the most drama. So I think they heard that and they knew exactly what they were finna do with that. And as y'all can see, like, yeah. So then Nia's mom, I keep on saying Nia's mom like I don't know her, Holly, tells her afterwards, like, you know, look, don't get your hopes up. I don't think we're gonna get this. We're just not entertaining enough. So then the chapter ends with Nia getting the call and they were offered the spot. So then I gotta move on to my phone because I was in the shower listening to this. Anyway, so chapter 3 opens up and then they're just talking about the contract and everything. They're going over it. So it was a 6-week contract at first and then it got 7 seasons. So she also talks about how it was a bad contract. It was like a lot of obligations they had, like they couldn't say anything about the show without approval and many more things. So she was talking about the pay, and it was $1K a week for all of them before taxes. That ain't nothing. And they only had 1 day to review the contract and commit. And you know something is bad when they're trying to get people to, you know, get in there quick. So then I just dropped my phone. Yeah, so, you know, then she talks about how they were able to renegotiate the plan, and you know, she doesn't really expand more on that. So she was excited to be on TV, and then she talks about her parents gave them freedom of choice and decision making. So I seen a lot of discourse when she announced this book, because people were saying, like, oh, like blaming Holly, saying like, oh, you know, this is her fault. She should have never kept her there for that long. I would never do this. I'm gonna do that. But that's just because, like, now that it makes sense, like her parents was letting her, you know, make your decision for yourself. It's teaching them a sort of independence and making them stick to the decisions they made. Because she did talk about, her mom told her, if you want to be on TV and you want to do this, then you have to commit to it. You have to stick to it. Now, I don't personally agree with, you know, I agree with freedom of choice, but to an extent, you know, because at the end of the day, it is just, they are just children and they don't know better. But I'm nobody's mom at all, so I'm not even gonna elaborate on that. Anyways, so she talks about how the atmosphere became very serious with each season, and they can no longer show personality with their clothes. And you can kind of see this when we watch the show. Like, first season, all the girls is kind of wearing whatever they want to, very bright colors, you know, animal prints, and it made me kind of, I hated how they made them so like bland and so like put together almost, because, you know, dance is really about expression. So why are you taking, you know, the personality out of their clothes? So Abby would always tell Nia to blend in and not draw attention to herself. So because anytime Nia would wear like her hair out, or anytime she wore like bright colors or not like fitting the rest of the girls, she said she's standing out. And the girls had to wear merch, like the ALDC merch. Abby was making them wear that, and so Nia said it was kind of like free labor to promote Abby's merch. And I'm not gonna lie, it did work, because I wanted some ALDC gear, and I didn't even go to ALDC, so I definitely wanted some of that gear, but obviously I didn't get it. So yeah. But yeah, so she just made, you know, Abby made all the girls wear that merch and then wear the same color, so all of them can look the same. So then she talks about booking jobs were hard due to her always being at the bottom of the pyramid, because the show did portray Nia as a bad dancer. And I'm not gonna lie, when I was young, I did think Nia was a bad dancer too. And as I got older and as I, you know, really started watching, I'm like, oh, she's actually not bad, you know, like because I get my own, I'm growing, and I'm like, oh, like I'm able to think for myself instead of just seeing what I see. So then she talks about, and I kind of get emotional on this, but I don't know if it's because she's like trying to, I feel like she's trying to do a slow burn type of situation, but I kind of got emotional, you know what I mean? So she talks how her and Kenzie were overlooked and, you know, often paired together by default, because, you know, Kenzie was the baby of the group. She was really younger. She was younger than most of them by a good grip. So she would, so they would always have to sit together on the bus and always have to do dances together. And Nia said she would put her bag on like a good seat and on the bus, hoping that one of the girls would sit next to her. Fortunately, she would come and her bag would always be moved to Kenzie's seat. And then she talked about how one time, like, it really hurt her because her bag was moved and they broke her LV strap from moving it. And she just talks about how you know, that Louis Vuitton bag was a gift from her parents, and it just really hurt, and, you know, that's not easily replaceable. And I was just like thinking to myself, like, oh my god, somebody would have had to rent me another LV bag or something. So she talks how, like, she makes sure she clarifies, like, she never had a problem. She doesn't have a problem with sitting with Kenzie at the time. She doesn't have a problem with it. It's just, you know, the principle, like, nobody else wants to sit by me. And she says, you know, anyways, like, the girls were growing up too fast because they wanted to be more like Brooke, and they wanted to, you know, do all the older kid stuff. And Kenzie still liked kid things, and Nia did as well. So she was able to still play with Kenzie, like with dolls and stuffed animals like that, and not be called a baby. And she just, you know, kind of sums it up and says, like, it still hurt her feelings overall that the other girls didn't want to sit next to her, especially since that was the one place she felt that she fit in. And, you know, as we go on, we see that, you know, she's starting to realize that this isn't a place that she really fits in. And she talks about, like, how ultimately the pyramid affected social capital as well. So that made her determined to work harder. So she wanted to work harder to get to the top of the pyramid so that the jobs and then her social capital can be up more. And that kind of just made me sad, because it's like, yeah, as Black people, we can't just get out of all spaces anytime somebody doesn't want us there, because that's going to be common. But it's just the fact that she felt like she had to, in a sense, prove herself to these white people in order for them to want to be friends with her and all that. And I just wish she had just a little bit more. I don't know, maybe she talks about it more, but I just wish she had a little more guidance regarding that. Not everybody's gonna kick it with you, but do it for yourself. Like, do it for yourself, because you want to be better than these people. Y'all don't want to talk to me? Okay, I'm gonna be better than y'all. Like, sure, like that, I'm gonna be better than y'all, and y'all can't say nothing to me afterwards. Don't try to come be my friends afterwards. But it seemed like how she's putting it is that she wanted to be better in order to fit into that group. And, you know, it's kind of like a canon event, especially when you're around a bunch of people that is not of your color, and you know, they kind of single you out. It's a canon event, and you learn to find your own identity and realize there ain't really nothing anyway. So she talks how so she talks about the competitions, and she kind of clears up that the competitions weren't fake. I never really thought they were fake, but you know, some people did think they were fake. And she said a lot of dance competitions actually didn't want Dance Moms filming there because it made the competitors kind of feel uncomfortable, and they had to go to dance conventions. And so competition directors would have to accommodate for Dance Moms a lot, like changing the schedule around to fit within their filming time, because their filming time would cut off at 11 p.m. So they would have to do awards early, because you know, sometimes dance competitions will last way past 11 p.m. So they would have to accommodate a lot. And they would also have to switch seats so moms can sit in front. They would switch people who were already, you know, them seats they would always sit in, they would have to switch and make these people sit somewhere else. And I would be mad. I would be mad if I'm seeing my daughter or my son perform and I got a good seat and y'all come up to me telling me I gotta move. Excuse me? Obviously, you know, these people got more power, so who knows how they was getting, but I ain't getting up out my seat. Yeah, y'all gonna have to go sit somewhere else because I ain't getting up. But I can understand how, like, this was very inconvenient, and for a lot of people who were really just trying to watch their kids or family members perform. So the performances were performed twice. So the first one would be for the judges, and the second one the judges would leave out, and then that's the one that we see, the second one. And so that made me think, like, the mistakes that Abby would talk about, does it technically, like, not happen? Because we would be seeing it, like, from the second, like, you know how, like, they would forget their dances and stuff like that, or they would, like, fall, or fall out of a turn, something like that, and then we'll see that. Like, I was just confused on that, because I'm saying, like, okay, if it's their second time, because a lot of times we'll see that their mistakes, their scores will reflect that. So I want to learn. I hope she touches on that more, because I want to learn a little bit more about that, because I was kind of confused. So many competitors were uncomfortable due to the filming crew, because it was all male camera crew. And you know, sometimes if, you know, as a dancer, you're backstage and you're doing like a quick quick change or whatever, and then it's just a bunch of males with cameras and, you know, sound microphones coming through and all that. And so then after the first seasons, they were asked not to attend competitions. They had to go to smaller competitions. So that makes me think, did them going to smaller competitions kind of limit the level of competition they had? Because, you know, they was winning a lot. So it's like, you know, do y'all think that it kind of was making it easier for them to win a lot because they didn't have much competition? I don't know, though. We still gonna keep going and see. And so then the last thing she kind of touched on before this chapter ended, how did she handle school? You know, was it distracting because of her schedule? She said she was more focused due to her busy schedule, because it was easy to stay focused because of the short window of time she had to complete things. So that's just sums up, like, chapters 1 to 3. Like I said, I really think it's a slow burn. I think it's really gonna get deeper as we, like, excuse me, as we further into the book, because right now she's kind of being nice nasty with, like, she's throwing a little you know, sprinkle, and if you catch it, you catch it. So so far it doesn't seem like she's trying to bash anybody. She's just simply telling her story. And if you're the type of person who is, you know, the people who's being rude to her, then at default, then you're just gonna look bad. So yeah, I'm gonna be back to y'all when we do chapters 4 through 7, and we can recap. But comment below what, like, something that I didn't peep that y'all did peep, anything that y'all, you know, agree with that I said or didn't agree with. Let's just have a talk down below.